Okay, let me code sandbox. Let's open the code sandbox. Okay. Now it's too big. Create. Okay. All right. Okay, let me share my screen. Where's the sandbox? All right, here. All right, do you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so actually, let me turn the camera off for a while. It's occupy the space for me. Okay. So in React, we so far learned about how when we do some action, let's say if you click on a button, right, we can update some state. That state, so for example, remember the counter exercise where we click on a button to add another value to the counter, and then the counter gets updated, right? And let's just build that example first. So you can code with me. Let's open a new sandbox and import use state and use, well, let's just import use state for now from React. Okay. And this is the standard stuff. So let's add counter, right? So I'm gonna add a button here. Instead of H2, I'm going to add a button. Plus button. Okay. And then I'm going to introduce the state const I set I equal to use state. Again, I'm going to go a little faster. I'll give you guys a chance to catch up. And then provide the state. All right. Okay. And then, so we have a use state, which allows you to set the state. So the initial value is 0. So we get two things. We get a setter and a getter, right? So we can put the getter to get the value, which is 0. And we need a setter. So in the button, we would say on click, right? Event. And this would be on click handle. And let's build that handle. On click handle is a function, right? Oops, somebody looks like somebody joined. right? So on click handle, yeah. And this is where we set I. Um, set I and previous plus one, right? All right. So let me format this. Okay. So if I click on it, it increases. Let's change. Let's update this. I'll give you guys a few minutes to update it. Update this. But this is the one that you guys did um, during when we introduced React, right? You have a use state, which allows you to create a new state, right? And then we have two things. You have a button and we have an element, H1, where we actually interpolating that I value, right? And then when we click on the button, it runs this handle and it takes whatever the previous value is and adds one to it, right? Set I. So we can increment it. Let me know once you finish typing. Okay. And then we can extend this example to use something called useEffect. All right. Um, Lily, are you also done?
No, I'm still typing.
Okay. Take your time.
I finished.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, so now let's understand this and what we can use this, right? So when we click on this button, what really happens is uh, it has this on click event, right? So when you click on the button, it runs this on click handle, which is this, and then it does a set I, right? And when set I happens, it takes whatever the previous value was. So let's say if we initiate this again, if I click on the previous value is 0, right? So it just takes the previous value and add one to it, right? And because it's a setter, what setter does is it initiates a refresh of the page. So um, once it sets the value of I, it actually initiates a refresh of the page. And what happens is that this value gonna get repainted. So wherever we have used I, which is only one place here, this will get refreshed. Okay. And so this gets refreshed. However, if I just console log right after set I, okay, so let's check it out. So right now, the value of I is 1, right? So if I click on this button again, I'm expecting the value this should go 2, right? And since I've console logged this right after set I, this should become 2 as well, right? Because the I value has changed using set I, right? So let's see what happens. So if I click on here, it actually shows me the value of I is 1. So it says that it's not updated. And the reason for it is when it does a set I, it first updates a screen. And then once a screen is completely updated, right, with the new value, then you will have 2 available, right? So at that point, this I becomes 2. So it happens after a few seconds after, or probably a few milliseconds for that matter. Depends on how fast it refreshes, right? So what if you want to use that new number in your code? When can I use this, right? As you notice that you cannot just use it anywhere right away because you don't know when it's updated, right? So there's another method called useEffect. Okay. This useEffect will let you know when something is being updated. Okay. Um, this is a very important a method that, or hook, they call it. Um, but you want to make sure that you don't abuse this. When I say abuse this, means I would say use if there's no other way, right? Otherwise, don't use it because oftentimes, I've seen people just using it everywhere, and it can create problems. Okay, so if there's another way, you fix it that way. Don't use useEffect. But it is an important part of React. So how does it work? So in here, it's very different hook than useState. So useState has this template, right? Which means you have to, if I want to create a state, I use this format to create a new state. useEffect works differently. It's a function, so it's a useEffect, and then there's a callback function inside, Okay, and then there is something called dependency. Okay. So it's an interesting syntax. So there are two parts. There's a first one is if you look at closely, there's a function that I passed in. There are two arguments to useEffect. One is a function, which is this function, and the second is this array, right? So in array, you can provide what you need to update. So let's say, or what you need to monitor. So let's say if I say I want to monitor I, right? Which means let me know when I is updated. That's what it means, right? So I can say console log I. Okay. Let me refresh this and format this. Okay. So now if I click on plus, you see it printed 1. So it knows when it's updated. If I click on again, you can see I is 2, which is this console log here, right? So what happens is, let me remove this so that it doesn't impact. Let me clean this up so we can see things more clearly. All right, let me refresh this. And so there's something we need to address, which is this, but I'll come to that. So there's 0 right now, right? So if I click on here, I can see it's 1. If I click on again, it's 2. So this value and this value now is matching, right? Because I'm not calling console log right after this. I'm calling console log inside this useEffect, right? So what is the use for this? Once I know when something is updated, let's say if I want to take this new value and do something, I can, do that, right? That's the purpose of it. We'll look at the use cases, but I think today just we want to understand what it is and how it works. Okay. There is also another use case, which is actually more important. So here you can, let's say if I have another state. So let's create another state call. How about you guys type this in, and then I'll give you a few minutes to type this in, and let me know once you finish.
I finished.
How about Jesse? Are you done?
Yeah, I'm ready. I had something that was popping up in the console log, but I think I fixed it.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so let's introduce another state. So we're gonna have another state that would be J. So it's instead of I, I'm gonna have a J, and there will be another one called set J, and I'm also gonna start with 0, right? And here, now that we have two variables or two states, we want to differentiate, right? So I'm gonna put here I equal to I, and then I'm gonna say J equal to J, right? So I've introduced a new state here, and then I also put the new state here so I can see it, right? So now if I click on here, obviously J is not going to update because we're not doing anything with it, because when we click on this button, it only updates I, right? Because we're calling set I, but we're not doing anything with J. Okay. So now what we want to do is when I click on this plus button, I want J to be one number ahead of I, right? So once I is updated, I also want to update J by one number ahead. So J is supposed to be, if I is 0, J is supposed to be 1. Okay. So how do I achieve that? But initially, I want both to be 0. So initially, they're going to be 0. But once I click on here, J, so I would become 1, J would become 2. Okay. But initially, they both would be 0. Okay. So how do I achieve that? So this is where I know once I is updated, right? Because I said if I gets updated, I would know here, right? So there are two ways to deal with it. You can see when I is updated, and then you can also check when J is updated, right? And you can write another one like this. For J. Okay. All right. The only thing is this is what we haven't discussed yet. What happens when you load the page for the first time, right? Initial load. I'm not talking about when you click on this plus button. Initial load, when it's setting the value to 0, right? If you want to catch if something is updated, you can catch it in either you can call it this, right? If you leave it empty, that means whatever happens on the initial load. So let's say console log initial load. Okay, so if I refresh it, well, let me clear it first and refresh it. See, this is getting called twice, and I'll tell you why it's happening. There's a weird thing that is happening with React that makes it update twice. Which we'll look at it. But if you also these guys also run when on the initial load. So I can, if I say console log initial load from I, and then I say from J, right, and run it, you can see they're all getting updated. I, J, all of them, right? And double time. They're all happening double time. J, this function, I, J, this function. So they're happening double time, right? I think I should be one more time. Yeah, I, J. Yeah, because this is how we define, right? I, J, this, right? So useEffect actually calls twice. Initially, it runs one time when you load the page, and then second time when you actually when that value changes. But this function always only runs once, right? This function only loads an initial load because we haven't provided anything. This function runs on initial load, and also when j is changing. This one runs on initial load and when I changes, right? So I don't really need this for now because I already know that. But I just wanted to show you, right, that this is what it is, because this already runs when on initial load. But if you just need something on initial load, then you run that function. Okay, there are sometimes when you need to do something, right, on initial load. Okay, so now we are here, right? Since this runs twice, once on initial load and second time when I changes, what we want to do is when I click on here, right? I already know that the initial value is 0, right? So I can actually check if I is, let's say, equal to 0, then I know it's an initial load, right? So I can say console log initial load, else, which means it's not an initial load. I can take j's value, so I can say set j to be take the previous value, and then, oh, in this case, I don't want the previous value. I want to take I plus 1, right? Because whatever I is, I want to add 1 to it, right? So let's look at this. So if I click on here, I can see I is 1, j is 0. Again, if I click on it, I is 2, j is 3, right? So this is following. Yeah, let's type this in. And then I'll tell you why it's doing this double thing. This is something that was introduced in a recent version of React. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. And again, this only runs once because on the initial load, after that it's not running because J is not, well, actually, hold on. Yeah, this one runs again. Yeah, because J is changing, right? So it catches whenever J changes. Yeah, try to, if you have any question on this one, let me know, because even though this looks easy, it is a little bit tricky because you have to, it's asynchronous, right? something happening on the page and then this gets reflected. But if you play around with it, right, try to, you know, understand it a little bit more clearly, you would get it. I think this used to work. Hold on, let me see. If I just console log I here, see what happens. Okay. Yeah, this is running twice. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you see, it's running twice. And again, I'm gonna give you a solution for that. It's when I first looked at it, I was really confused. But then I realized that they have upgraded the system, so that upgraded the version of React. So I think what they wanted to do is there's something else that needs to be done, and a lot of people were not doing that, even though it's an important feature. So what they did is they force everyone to use that function, and it's called cleanup function. Okay. I think it runs twice in a development mode. Yeah, it's in a development mode. It runs twice, but there is something that you need to do to make sure that because a development mode is where you actually are developing, right? So it should not run twice even in a development mode. So if it runs twice in a development mode and once in a production mode, it can be very annoying, right? Because you're looking at something and then something is else when you release it. So there's something called cleanup function. Okay. So each useEffect, you can actually return a function, and it's called cleanup function. Okay. And if you, so the reason for this function is to clean up anything that you want to do. So once you finish it, if you want to unset something, right now you're not going to understand too much, but if you want to unset something and things like that, that just console log inside. Console log, cleaning it up. Okay. And I'll do the same thing. Cleaning, I would say cleaning up I, cleaning up J. Okay. And I think if you do cleanup function, I believe, okay, it should, did it run twice again? Initial load. This is initial load. And then you have initial load from J. Okay, that's good. Then you have cleaning up I, which is this. Then you have cleaning up J, which is this. As you can see, cleaning up runs after, right? Oh, it still runs twice. Okay, yeah, I think it does run twice. Okay, let's look at this. example that Andy provided. So if you remove the strict mode, then it render once. But you know, I don't want to remove the, it's rendering twice. This is this, how old is these? Okay, this is, oh, this is, okay, let me see. Okay, I want to look at the latest one, which is this. Let me just Google it. Let's look at, whenever it's something like this, what you want to do is you want to look at, go to the tools, and instead of anytime, I would want to just look at past, let's say month. Okay, I don't want to look too far. Okay, let's look at this one. All right. No. Okay, instead of, let's say, month, because this is a little older issue. I think it's probably 1 year older issue. Okay. See, they're trying to do the same thing. This will twice after the stage saying double useEffect call. All right. Yeah, they're saying remove the strict mode. Yeah, the question is, yeah, why do I want to remove the strict mode? Because strict mode protects a lot of things. So what I understood, if you watch. Okay, so there. Yeah, so they're doing this, which is quite interesting. So if I copy this, okay, let's look at this. Again, this is how you debug your stuff. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we know it renders twice right now. So we're gonna introduce a variable called ignore. Okay, and so let's do that. We're gonna say ignore, and then in the cleanup function, we're gonna set ignore to false. to true, sorry. So ignore to true. Okay. I think that's what they did. Let's just make sure that's what they did. Okay. Return ignore to true. Okay. And then here, they're saying that if ignore equal to true, then only run this thing. It's quite painful to do this, but we are going to see if it works. Okay. So let's see if it works. So I'm just going to refresh it. All right. So, all right, let's just comment this out. So we don't want to look at this J. We just want to look at only this. So as you can see, if I refresh it, oh, now there's no initial load call. Okay, that's a problem. Because then I'm not getting the initial load call. Right. So this never get called if I did this. Yeah, maybe. I think this, instead of doing this kind of shenanigans, we should just. I haven't used React 18 for a while because at work we use an older version of React, so we don't have this issue. I guess we will have issue when we move to that. So what they're suggesting is, if we go back here and where's the file manager? Yeah, we go to index.js and then we remove the strict mode from here. Okay, and then save it. And now you see that it only runs once. It doesn't do twice. And now if I enable this again and refresh it, you will see there's initial load from I, and then there's initial load from J, right? And after that, cleaning up. I shouldn't, well, initial load, because this is actually, because I put it everywhere. So I should have done this, right? If J equal to not equal to 0, then run this. But anyway, I don't need this. But anyway, now it runs once only. Okay. So yeah, you can see it runs only once. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, the other one is a solution, but it's not a good solution, right? Because oftentimes what people do is to use this initial load to get the data from the server. So let's say if I load facebook.com, right, or instagram.com, what happens? It's a React site, which means when it loads, initial load, you need to get everything. You need to get your profile photo, your status, whatnot, right? So what it does in initial load, it goes and gets all the data, right? But if this is rendering twice, which means it's going to get the data twice, which means double the work, right? So this way, if you remove that strict mode from this index.js, it works. But then in that strict mode also has other benefits, right? So now if you remove it, it's not, you're not going to get that benefit. So that's a problem. Yeah, I think I'll probably try to find another solution. I thought that, doing this should solve it, but cleaning up should solve it. But yeah, it seems like it's not. I mean, it would solve it in a way if you did it right. But so what you have to do, this solution, it would work, but you only do for like if you getting the data from server, you just say, okay, if get it only if this is true, right? Which means it's a second render. So, but anyway, don't worry too much about it, right? Just remove the strict mode for now, and this should work properly. Any questions? What are some examples of when not to use useEffect? That's a good question. When not to use useEffect. This is actually avoid unnecessary relearning, because every time you use useEffect, it has, I think probably not this one. I would use this one. Oh, right, this one. This is the one that I would suggest. Yeah, let me put it in the chat. Okay, so for example, let's say you have this example here. You have a first name and a last name, so two states, right? And some people want to, have another state which has called full name, right? So, people, a lot of people would do this. They'll create a third state called full name, right? And then what they'll do is once the first name and last names are updated on the screen, they will set the full name. They will, on this. This is completely unnecessary because you can add this anytime. You don't need to do it in another state, right? So in this case, they're using unnecessary state, right? Actually, let's build this. This is. Have you finished doing this, or I can actually. Have you finished doing this, writing this example? I can actually paste it in the chat as well if you haven't finished it. Okay, so for example, let me remove all of those stuff. So a lot of people, what they'll do is, let's say if you have a first name, so const first name set f name equal to use state, and let's say this is my name, right? And then I can do the same thing for the last name. Right? And if I can actually have first name here and last name, right? I don't need a button, for example. Okay, so I have a first name and last name. Oh, right. on here. So if I want to have a full name, all I need to do is I don't need to use any kind of effect. Well, they should say first name, last name, full equal to F name. I'm going to put some space in between and then like this, right? I don't really need a new variable to do that, right? So that's what they're trying to say. A lot of people would just, you create a useEffect and then create another variable called first, full name. And then inside the useEffect, they would add them up. And then, you have it as a state, right? So this is what they're saying. You don't need it, that extra variable, right? What else? So that's that. Hashing. Yeah, a lot of these things we haven't learned, so I guess you can try to understand it, but I would just say ignore it for now. Okay, so here we have a new to-do list, and this is using a use memo, which we haven't learned, so I'm not gonna go in here. Yeah, this also use memo. Okay. What about this one? Comment, set comment. Just cleaning it up. Resetting state on the prompt change. Yeah, I would just say use common sense. Just if you feel like, uh, because what happens, use state is quite tricky. Use effect is quite tricky. A lot of people, what they do is they'll do like a one state, updating another state, right? That becomes so tricky and it's very hard to track. So you want to avoid all those pitfalls as much as you can. Okay. So yeah, any questions? All right. So I think yeah, let me know if you have a last question. I'll give you some interesting homework on this one. But yeah, this is a little tricky concept, but it's important to understand if you want to understand. So okay, so Jesse said, so it will work for small single render tests, but there are better ways to do with other methods. Yeah, I mean, if so when you build your like a state diagram, you're doing simple stuff right now, right? But let's say if you're building a little bit of a complex game, which I was thinking actually, now that we have learned useEffect, I was thinking of building a game or something for you guys as a project. So in the project, if I find, I will explain some of the concepts, and we can look at how to mess thing up, right, using useEffect, and then solve it without using useEffect, right? A useEffect is important to do certain things. You cannot, there are no other solution. Like if you want to know when your page is loaded initially, you have to use useEffect, right? But if you want to do like this kind of trigger things, when one changes and another thing, you want to know when it changes, and then you want to do something else, if you can get around it without using useEffect, do it, right? So things like that. Oh, there's no video. Okay. I think I'm wondering where did it post the video. Let me check. It is possible that it has a URL. Okay. Okay. What I'll do, Jesse, is I think it probably there are two ways to post the video. One is download on my computer and then upload it. I think it automatically posted on the server. So I need to find it where it actually got. Oh, is it on the YouTube? Let me check. This is not the video. YouTube channel. Oh, there's another one. So this is the intro to Flexbox. I think there's another one. I think, yeah, that one I think I haven't uploaded on here, but I think this one is I have a URL. So I'll post it in the canvas. Yeah, it's a URL. Okay. I think it uploaded in my cloud, I guess, whatever, the Zoom cloud. Yeah. So this was from a week before. There was another one for only Flexbox, which is not on YouTube. So I'll post that on Canvas and then today's one as well. Okay. All right. Yeah, thanks for looking into it because I thought I posted it. All right. All right. If there's no more questions, I'll see you guys next week. And yeah, make sure that you guys start working on your project if you haven't done so. I think we don't have a lot of times left. I have to check when is the last date, but I think it's sometime in May, right? So we don't have a lot of time. So make sure you start working on it.
Are we going to demonstrate the project?
Yeah. So what you do is last day of the class. I usually don't have finals. Like the final is usually you are showing your code.
I didn't check closely, but is there like a rubric on the requirements and expectations of this project?
Basically, so the way I see it is, I'll upload I will post the final project homework. What I expect is any kind of application. I don't really expect you guys to build something very complex. But your application, whatever you build, right? It can be a very simple application that does something, or it can be a very complex application that does something, right? Some people build like a tic-tac-toe game. Some people build rock, paper, scissors. Some people build a calculator, right? And then I've had students who build like a snake game, which is very complex, right? So I would suggest pick something in your comfort zone, okay? But it should be working. So when you present it, the functionality that you said you have should be working, right? Without any issues. Make sense?
Okay.
Yeah. So, and okay, another thing is, let's say if you were planning to build a giant project, right? Let's say I want to build my own Facebook. Okay. That's quite ambitious, but let's say if I wanted to do that. If I can build a login page, right? And then say, okay, this is work in progress, but login page is supposed to work. Right. So you can have a ambitious project, but have at least one functionality working in that, and then showcase it saying, okay, you know what? this is work in progress, but I achieved what I wanted to achieve. And then once a class finishes, I'll continue working on it, and I'll achieve this final deliverable at some point when I get a chance, right? So that could be one option as well. So this way you can pick something complex, but build something simple to begin with. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll upload the requirement and the rubrics and everything on the canvas tonight. Anyone remember what's the last day of the class? Let me check. So
I think it's 2 more weeks.
more weeks. Okay.
We have 2 more classes left.
Okay. So yeah, we are very close. So yeah, start working on it. And if you need any help, just send me a message on Canvas, or send me a message on Discord as well. If you need a quick response, I usually check my message on live. So if you send me right now, I would see it right away in my hand. So I can respond quickly. But if you put it on Canvas, it will take a couple days. Yeah. All right.
Hey, I'm not sure if it makes any difference, but I think we were a late start class, so it might be that we have up until that last week, like just before Labor Day, but I'm not entirely sure about that.
Okay. Let's see. I'm always confused with like where they post this information. Their website is always kind of clunky. Academic calendar. Okay, so fall, spring 23rd. Okay, so this is 8-week session. Spring session, 10-week session. Man, this is confusing. Oh, this is the one. I think ours is 14 weeks, but anyway, this is okay. So May 27 looks like is the May 27 is the last day, if I'm not wrong. Okay. So that means we have 2 more weeks. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'll
Is our last day the 24th or the 17th? 2 more weeks is the 17th.
Let me check the calendar. So I think I put everything in the calendar. Okay, so yeah, I think 24th is the last day. Okay, so we have 2 more teaching session, and then the last day we just do a demo. So 10th and 11th is a teaching session, and 24th is the demo. Okay. Yeah. So you have, in a way, you have 3 weeks to do this. So that's good.
So can we use something that we learn outside of class? I mean, still React, but like the functions that we learn from other websites.
Yeah, you can use anything. It doesn't matter, as long as it's just an application that works, right? Yeah, you can, as long as it's a React or JavaScript application that works. I'll be happy.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, cool. All right. I'll see you guys next week then.
I see you.
Bye. Thanks.
All right. See you.
Thanks.